Hi everyone, I'm Lisa and welcome to Lisa's Stamp Studio. Today I'm doing a little something different. I know summer's ended for everyone and that meant the kids went back to school and things are kind of back in the old routine of work and lunches and bus stops and extracurricular activities. But here in Florida, we're still enjoying the sunshine and I could not resist sharing this adorable Lighthouse card with you. The one thing about this card that I think is going to be great for you to learn today is a masking and a sponging technique to get you some dimensions. Remember too that all the products that I'm going to share with you today are available in my online store and I offer great exclusive rewards for those who shop there. You can click on the rewards tab over on my blog, which is to the right, and you'll be able to see sneak peek pictures as well as details on how you can get your freebies. Let's get over to the stamp table and let's get started. We'll start with a piece of Whisper White cardstock. This measures 2 by 3 3/4. I'm going to use the ornate tag topper punch and I'm going to slide up the back of the punch all the way in. I'm going to press to create the tag for this card. I'm going to be using the Lighthouse from the Land and Sea stamp set. Loving this new archival basic black ink pad. Great for when you're going to marker or watercolor. You don't have to worry about it bleeding or fading, and it's a nice deep black color. So I'm going to use that to stamp my Lighthouse. I'm going to put a greeting on here, so I'm going to make sure I stamp my Lighthouse all the way over here to the left side. And I have a little trick. Let's stamp it this way because you'll have a lot better luck. And I'm also going to leave some room at the bottom for my rocks and my water, which is part of the masking technique I'm going to teach you. I'm using the words from Something to Say stamp set. It's really a great versatile set because there's lots of different sentiments inside. I'm going to use that in the archival black ink as well, and I'm going to stamp that here to the side. What I did just prior to the video was I pulled off a Post-it note. I stamped the exact same Lighthouse on it again, but I used the sticky part towards the bottom. With a pair of paper snips, this is actually going to be the mask. Now here's a great thing about making a mask. Once you make it, save it. Put it inside the stamps case so that you can use it again and again. Now I'm not going to need much more than just the bottom, so I am not going to fussy cut really close anywhere except for there. And you're going to see that it's still tacky near the bottom where the sticky part is for the Post-it notes. That's what's going to hold it in place. You're also going to notice that I've cut very, very close to the stamp line. This is going to go over the original design, and I want you to line it up as good as you possibly can. Bring in some grid paper so you have a little bit of work surface underneath you, and with an additional Post-it note, again, sticky is going to be at the top, we're going to do a little bit of ripping. So it doesn't really even matter if you got rip a lot or a little. We're just trying to create a rough edge. This is the tip top taupe, and I'm using a sponge dauber. I am going to line this up about where I want my rocks to start. So I'm going to say just a little bit up here. It doesn't really matter where you decide, anywhere is fine. I'm going to dab this inside the tip top taupe, but I don't want it too strong. And then I'm going to do little circular motions, and you're going to see it went right over that Post-it note because it's protecting the original image. And I'm daubing half on the Post-it note, half off the Post-it note. Now, I know you're probably thinking, I don't see anything. Yeah, but you will in a second. So let me lift the Post-it note, and you see how we've got some rocks here? Now I'm going to move this down, and I'm going to change the formation a little bit. So I'm tipping my Post-it note a little bit into a different direction, and I'm sponging some more. And there we go, and then I'm going to do one more over here. Now that that's finished, we're going to do a little bit of filling in. And I wanted to create a little bit of a water line on this image. So I used the Pacific Point ink pad, turned it upside down and gave it a little squeeze so I could get some ink inside the well. You can tell I've been using this a little bit lately, huh? This is my aqua painter. Just going to give it a little squeeze to make sure it's not too sopping wet. Going to pick up a little bit of that blue, but I want to water it down. And this is where my water line's going to go. And I'm not even being pretty about it. I'm just kind of putting it at the bottom. Now on my original card, you're going to see that I add a little bit of green above the Lighthouse to indicate land. And this one I'm not going to even bother, but you can certainly do that. Same exact way I've done this one, just squished a little bit of Pear Pizzazz ink on top of there. Now we're going to pull off the mask. Isn't that neat? So it looks now like this is around the lighthouse instead of it being on top of the lighthouse. Let's go ahead and save that. We're going to use that probably in the future for another card. And this is the Real Red marker. And I'm going to go ahead and add some color to my lighthouse. And I'm just going to use the thicker end, which is the brush side. And I'm going to fill in some areas on my lighthouse to give it that nautical look. The next thing I'm going to do is take 4 inches of the Pacific Point satin ribbon, beautiful match to the ink and the designer paper and cardstock, and I'm going to bring that through the hole that was created with the punch. Now I want to tie these off, so I decided I wanted to use the white jute ribbon. Now it has a seam down the side, so with my scissors I cut that seam off, which allows me to pull off a strand at a time, which is really just a fun way to get a little bit more of a masculine look to a card versus the white baker's twine, which you could certainly use. So I'm going to tie this in a knot at the base of my ribbon, which will enable it to stand up straight instead of flop down. Once that's finished, we're going to give this a little bit of a haircut. I'm going to trim up my ends. So now our tag is ready to go. So let's work on the base of the card. This is 8.5 by 5.5 of Real Red cardstock, and I'm going to begin by folding it in half. I love to use my bone folder to make sure I get that good crease. I'm going to create a wood grain background, and I'm going to do that with the hardwood background stamp. Now, really large stamp, so I'm going to give you a great tip on how to use it. I mark mine where it's at the top just to make it easier for those people that are attending class with me. Some background stamps have a direction, so the grain is going in the right way, so that's why I've labeled it. Real Red ink pad. And I am going to tap ink all over the surface of the stamp. So here's my front of my card, so it would open this way. I'm going to flip it upside down on top of this image. Again, I'm not holding the stamp. I'm going to fold my grid paper over and I'm going to rub, transferring the design from the bottom up. This is so much easier than trying to handle that large stamp. And when you're done, you can dump it right off. And there we go. We've got a beautiful hardwood background for our card. You'll cut yourself a piece of 2.5 by 4 1/4 designer series paper, and I've gotten this from the Bright's assorted collection of designer paper. I'm going to add adhesive to what I'm using as the wrong side. Remember, all the designer papers with Stampin' Up! Are double-sided, which gives you lots of options. And I'm going to mount this near the bottom of my card. That same Pacific Point satin ribbon, this time I've cut 5 inches. Here's where the beauty of this amazing craft mat comes in. Because it's silicone, adhesive will not stick to it. So I am going to add little dashes of adhesive all down this ribbon, and it's nearly the perfect width. But the great thing about the mat is it's going to keep any extra sticky off your work surface. This is going to get mounted right above the designer paper here. I'm going to flip this over, and with my paper snips, using the outside of the card as a guide, I'm going to trim off the excess. So guess what? All we have to do now is mount this, and you know I love dimensionals, so I'm going to take a couple of those. I'm going to mount them to the back, and that'll go right here on the top of the card. Make sure that you compensate for the ribbon so that it'll fit in your envelope. So here's the card we created today, and here's the one I created previously. This one again has the landline, this one does not. Gives you a lot of variation, and it teaches you a great new technique called masking. Thanks for joining me today, everyone, and I hope to see you next week. Have a great day.